Throughout human history, one thing has been a constant: crime. There are many types of crimes committed and many types of investigators who look into them. Criminals get very creative to stay ahead of the law. Find out crime doesn't pay.
Can you guys hear this video?
Dissects various crimes.
Hello, my friends.
And disappearances.
Oh no, it's not playing with volume.
Crime Maze.
Oh, you can hear me. Excellent. Just got to bring myself on camera. Thank you, everyone. I hope you're able to hear the intro. Maybe only I can't hear the intro. As long as you guys hear it, that's the main thing. Did you hear the intro? Just curious. Thank you very much, of course, to Lee at Devil's Advocates. He helped me set up going live today on the computer. He helped me set up the intro as well for the first time on my laptop here for you guys and gals on the live. And he says, we heard it. Awesome. Hi, Robin. Robin is, of course, the co-producer over with Devil's Advocates. Lee, of course, on his amazing YouTube channel. They're both doing amazing. And I can't tell you guys how much enjoyment I've had over at that channel and being a guest, and honored and privileged to hang out with them night after night recently, and hopefully making a positive contribution. I know Robin does for sure in her own way as co-producer. And of course, Lee is, as he once said, he's got some cock swagger. But today it's about me, right, folks? Who am I? I'm Jason. I also go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze on YouTube. And again, I do want to go back to Devil's Advocates for a moment, and Robin. Thank you guys and gals for, especially Lee, for helping me get so many more subscribers, pumping up my channel. Robin has also said my channel's name, of course, over there as a guest with Lee. So thank you very much for the support, my friends. Thank you to Joe as well. He's one of the regular guests, of course, with Lee. He was on there well before me, and they have their own thing as well at, I forget the site it's called. Deep Dive, I think, Devil's Advocates or something. Anyway, you guys just go over to Devil's Advocates. You'll find out. Check our lives. You'll find all this out. You'll meet Joe as one of the guests, and of course, we've got 11 spelled W-U-N and then W-U-N, 11. So again, I'm ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Welcome, everyone. I see we've already got about 2,000 people on the live chat right now. This is unreal. I mean, no, I'm just joking. I'm exaggerating, not 2,000, but I appreciate each and every one of you. You got to start somewhere. And I tell you, I feel so comfortable. It's the first time I've sat down actually doing a live. You see my new home? What do you think, Devil's Advocates and Robin? Do you like my new home? And Teresa is on the chat page. You see I got a grand piano, even though I don't know how to play it. Brand new couch. By the way, Harsh Reality, this guy, he is a piece of work. I mean, he does some good work, don't get me wrong, but I'm a little envious. This guy has big supporters that give him brand new top of the line couches, like literally paying for a couch for Harsh Reality. But you see, my friends, guys like Harsh Reality, he covers the IDAHO4 case like I do, and like Devil's Advocates done. And of course, Devil Advocates and myself, we cover other cases as well. And Joe and 11 and Rob and I. But what was I going to say? Harsh Reality, my friends, he will never tell you or even discuss the possibility of the theory that Lee from Devil's Advocates, Joe, 11, and Robin, they know that I'm adamant that the whole IDAHO4, I truly believe, was a psyop, right? It was staged, and it was a violent event that was staged, folks. In other words, the students are alive. There was no crime scene that night, my friends. So November 12th, right? 2022. There was no real crime that took place. There was no tragedy. And this is the good news, my friends, if you believe my theory. And of course, we can agree to disagree. I'm not trying to convince anybody. But it does feel good when I know there are a lot of people that seem to now agree with my theory. They've left me many comments on my videos, and they give their perspective, why they believe it. And one of the reasons people often will hop on my theory at times, my friends, and support it is because, as I say, everyone, there was no verifiable removal of the bodies, first of all. Can I repeat that, folks? And by the way, I don't know, is there a way to give a thumbs up to any of you? Let me just see here. No, I when I put my cursor over on you, my friends, you disappear. So maybe I have to pay for StreamYard eventually, and I give you guys and gals a thumbs up. I'm going to scroll down here. 1 second, I'll finish my thought. Yes, good to hear from you too, Robin. Fancy meeting here, Devil's Advocate says, laugh out loud. Appreciate it. We got 11 people already on the live. 11,000. No, 11 people, but I appreciate everyone. So as I was saying, one of the hugest things in this case, my friends, and I'm glad you can hear me clearly, no verifiable removal of the bodies. I mean, isn't that bizarre, folks? You better believe, in my opinion, everyone, I think it's reason, logic, common sense, if a crime really took place, if these beautiful 4 students, and who were they? Kaylee Gonzalez, the beautiful, vivacious, intelligent Kaylee Gonzalez, her bestie, they had a wonderful bond when you learn in this case, my friends, Kaylee Gonzalez and her bestie, they were like sisters. Who am I referring to? The beautiful, intelligent, vivacious Madison Mogen, right, folks? And then you had the handsome, he was basically a stud, Ethan Chapman, right? 6'3", 6'4", big strapping guy. And yet we're supposed to believe. And then you had Xander Canoodle, of course, the beautiful, intelligent, vivacious Xander Canoodle as well, my friends. We were told a million times to this day through CI corporate media that all 4 were stabbed viciously, right? And then they had put out Steve G, who I've talked about a million times, and we'll continue to talk about him in further lives, everyone, and hopefully on Devil's Advocate show at times. Steve G, my friends, he's telling you, he's trying to put out this emotionally charged narrative, in my opinion, everyone. He's being debriefed probably by the FBI, and this guy doesn't even cry in his interviews. Are you kidding me? Right? His beloved daughter, he was trying to convince the public that she was viciously stabbed to death with the others, right? And viciously stabbed in the face, apparently. And or his words were, her nose was busted. And then we get led out by supposedly the coroner, I guess, that, she was stabbed in the face. Don't trust the coroner, my friends. Kathleen Mabbitt, I think is her name. She's an interesting woman. But in my opinion, everyone, she's just bought in. She is forced to lie in this case, most likely, folks. And again, even with the coroner, my friends, you can't trust her. And it still doesn't explain why wasn't there any verifiable evidence of the bodies being removed, my friends? No body bags seen, folks. You better believe body bags would be seen coming out of the house if a crime scene really took place that night. Right, everyone? Come on, reason, logic, common sense, isn't it? But if there was an extraction removal operation, my friends, which I believe there was, the U.S. Marshals absolutely covertly, in the cover of darkness, they extracted all 4 students, my friends. And if that happens, obviously they didn't have time to be able to pre-plan this. And I mean, they pre-planned it to a certain degree, I believe, but they didn't have time to create body bags and people coming out of the house, right, everyone? There's only so much they can do to stage this crime scene, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. But you guys, again, if you can agree or disagree. If you disagree, tell me why. Would love to know. No, they tarped off everything from the site, Robin says. Yeah, exactly. Tarped off everything. Interesting. Well, I hope Devil's Advocates one day hears this comment, and I would love to say it on a show. I'll never forget, Devil's Advocates obviously has a great chemistry and a great friendship and social media working relationship with Birdie, right? And many of us know who Birdie is. He's doing fantastic work. He's really built his channel up, apparently through his lives. Apparently he gets over 1,000 views on his lives. And he's done really good work, him and some of his friends and researchers that have helped him along the way. And the point is, everyone, I'll never forget when Phoenix, who's been interviewed, I guess she's been on his show many times. I've heard her speak, seen her. I thought she said something amazing, everyone, and I totally agree. She said on the Birdie show with Birdie, she said, if you take away the crime scene tape, and again, Robin has just said here they tarped up everything. If you take away the crime scene tape, after the supposedly stabbings, this atrocity, and you take away the badges, from like those local law enforcement, right? It's almost, she said in so many words, it's almost like I would be saying, I'll address devil's advocates. I'll say, Lee, devil's advocates. It's almost like I bought you a piece of pizza or paid you to move my shit out at the end of the semester. That's how they treated this crime scene at times, folks, right? As I've said a million times, they didn't treat this like a real health hazard. And you better believe, my friends, any frontline nurse will tell you, my sister's a nurse. She knows about the IDAHO4. If you have 4 people viciously stabbed to death, unalived, as YouTube likes to say, but we'll say stabbed to death. I'm not going to, we shouldn't sugarcoat it with these ridiculous words, unalived. And I commend Lee, devil's advocates, for not, saying unalived. Okay. He's not a sellout. Devil's Advocates is showing a lot of integrity in a lot of ways on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. I wish more people would do that. Oh, by the way, my friends, Nancy Grace, she destroyed Joel from Surviving the Survivor. I like Joel for the most part, except his coverage on IDAHO4 and his guest. But Nancy Grace, Joel used the word unalived for another case, the Ellen Greenberg case, and Ellen Greenberg. Anyway, Joel said unalived, and Nancy said, what did you say? You're unalived? You're talking, it's suicide. Because they were referring to, some people thought the Ellen Greenberg case was suicide, was listed as a suicide by some of the coroners. And so Nancy Grace, I thought it was hilarious. She set Joel straight on the verbiage. We got to use the proper language here, my friends. Okay? So anyway, sorry I got sidetracked. So it was a staged crime scene, my friends. I agree with Phoenix on the Birdie show. I agree a lot of what Birdie has said on one of his theories. He goes into many different theories, and with Phoenix, a lot of which at times I don't agree, and that's okay. I mean, I'm sure Birdie, to his credit, everyone, even though he goes to other theories, he sunk his teeth, as he said, most into the Witzik angle, my friends. And what is Witzik? And I appreciate Lee from Devil's Advocates. Before I forget, I really appreciate Lee having the courage to have me on as a guest. We're having a great time. He appreciates apparently my presentation at times, and we know we have he knows we have great chemistry. He knows I've tried to research IDAHO4. Certainly, I'm not perfect, but Lee, I appreciate Lee's courage to allow me and ask me the right questions, and he allows me to speak freely on my extraction removal operation theory, my friends, showing you the students I believe are protected most likely in the Witzik program, right? And Joe's brought it up many times. He's asked me great questions. And on we go. So, and Robin as well in her own way. So, my friends, this is the real reality I believe went down. What is Witzik? Obviously, Lee from Devil's Advocates, he knows full well what Witzik is. Joe knows. 1-1 knows. I'm sure Robin knows too. Witzik, my friends, and Birdie knows. He's talked about it extensively, right? And Phoenix knows. It's the Federal Witness Security Protection Program in the United States, my friends. In other words, it's a type of witness protection program that the feds have set up. It's massive infrastructure, by the way, my friends. They've got Witzik in all kinds of places in the United States. And yes, you'll have the J. Emery, Mr. Pavarotti, and excuse me. I'm just reading a comment here. Robin says, it's great being on with you. We always have great discussions. Thank you very much, Robin. I concur. I've been following true crime for a long time, says, I think it's at SCM Michael. SCM Michael says, I've been following true crime for a long time. I've never seen the PD pack up the victim stuff and move it from the scene. Brilliant comment. Neither have I. Exactly. Thank you for that comment. I'm going to try to screenshot that at some point. Exactly. So 1-1 says, love you, Esty. Thank you, 1-1. Thanks for that amazing inspiration. You're very kind, dude. You're a great guy. 1-1 is a former cop, police officer, law enforcement. That's why I like asking him certain questions, like I did last night on Devil's Advocate show, folks. So again, my friends, Birdie and Phoenix laid it out. I agree. If you take away the badges, the crime scene tape, which is just all for show, I believe in this case, my friends, they didn't treat it like a real crime scene, in other words, folks. And I'll give you an example. And by the way, Mr. Pavarotti, Devil's Advocates Lee, he continually says, which is cool, he says, I don't have a beef with Pav. And Lee yet admits that he doesn't agree with a lot or at times what, Pav puts out there. And Pav has been caught in contradictions and maybe even lies for all I know, for what we know. But no, Pav he's an entertaining guy, as one once said. And we all know he can be entertaining to certain people. But Pav, my friends, apparently he does not want to be asked these hard questions. I challenged him to an interview. I have a playful beef with Pavarotti. I exposed him in my own way, my friends, and I simply challenged him also to an interview, even though I don't have a big channel, right? Everybody knows I'm kind of new to this, but I'm growing, and thanks to amazing Devil's Advocates, he's really helped promote my channel and supported me along the way, and now I'm on his show, which is great with, again, some fantastic guests. But Pav doesn't want to, apparently, my friends, he doesn't talk about this. He doesn't tell you the facts that there was no removal evidence of the bodies, no body bags seen coming out of the house. Why? I would ask Jay Embry, how can you justify that an atrocity happened when there were no body bags seen? Why don't you talk about that? I would say to Pavarotti. Ask him that, right? What? And we'll go over a whole list, folks. No pre-trial autopsy confirmation. I had that written down from months ago, part of this list. Maybe you'll tell me that there was eventually some pre-trial so-called autopsy confirmation. But again, my friends, you can't trust the coroner, in my opinion. Naturally, if there's a huge cover-up, which I believe there is, my friends, and even people have said, many people said, is it Kathleen Mabbitt? Is it Kathleen or Kathy Mabbitt? She's a very interesting woman, right? She was former nurse. She's a coroner. Some people have joked she could be an artist and have other jobs. Who knows? She's got at least 3 job descriptions, but or at least 2, I think, if not 3. So, but my friends, the coroner, believe me, she's not telling you the truth, in my opinion. She came on an interview and people said she looked nervous and sketchy as hell. And again, you almost got to feel sorry for her, in my opinion, everyone, because she's probably being pushed, just like Steve G, in my opinion, everyone, largely Christy G. They are told to try to push out a certain narrative. I believe even Lee from Devil's Advocate said this in so many words with some of these people involved in this case, folks. And again, none of the parents have acted in any close to normal grieving. We all grieve differently. I get it. This has been said a million times, right, everyone? And will always continue to be said. Everybody grieves differently. But again, if you're a father of your beloved daughter and you're describing, especially when her nose is busted, and you don't break down, you don't cry at all. He doesn't cry in any of his interviews. People have told me this, right, everyone? You can see it. He doesn't cry. If his daughter, believe me, my friends, reason, logic, common sense, isn't it? If Kaylee Gonzalez was really stabbed viciously to death, whether it be from gangbangers, cartel organization, or a Brian Koberg, whoever did this, supposedly, right? He would be crying, wouldn't he, everyone? Instead, he has righteous anger at times, right? And Christy G, she tries to act frantic at times, and the daughter, Olivia Gonzalez, in my opinion, she's also all over the place. I mean, come on, folks, right? We could go on and on. And by the way, before I forget, on this live, everyone, as I said last night on Devil's Advocates, I believe, but remember, everyone, if you have any doubts about whether those students are alive or not, how about we piece this connection too, my friends? And again, Jay Embry, he'll never play you this clip, apparently, everyone, but I would ask him in an interview, you better believe it. But he won't interview me, my friends, apparently, because he doesn't want to be asked the hard questions, or he doesn't want to be exposed either, and he'll lose possibly a lot of subscribers if he has somebody like me on his show. And that's not my goal, everyone. I'm not trying to condemn Jay Embry that way. I don't want him necessarily to lose subscribers. He's done all these hundreds of videos, built up this massive channel, but we got to be very careful, my friends. That's all I'm saying with some of these YouTube creators. Okay, let me just say, everyone, you better believe the feds are putting out certain misinformation, disinformation agents on YouTube, my friends, I believe, right? To confuse the waters, to confuse the public and lie and deceive the public about the IDAHO4, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree to this, right? There's been so many lies from the feds. Why wouldn't they put disinformation, misinformation agents on YouTube? I'm just saying. And I'm not trying to convince you if one way or another, if Jay Embry is one of them, my friends. We got to just be very careful. And as I say, my friends, I supported Jay Embry too. I didn't have a problem with Pav for the longest time, for about the first year, whenever he was doing his videos. But then, everyone, when you start to connect the dots, see, I bought into the narrative from CIA, FBI. That's apparently what Pav buys into, my friends. The part of the narrative that he goes along with, just apparently all willing to believe FBI, CIA, and law enforcement there in Moscow, Idaho, local law enforcement. He just goes along, well, yeah, an atrocity happened. Oh, because we've been told they were stabbed to death. And Steve G tells us? Are you kidding me? Again, everyone, there's no evidence to show you a crime took place. It's all staged, right? And what was I going to say, my friends? I get so excited here. I'm just trying to see if I hear a comment here. Oh, by the way, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe. By the way, my friends, I almost forgot. I'd love to have your subscription. I want to build up subs. As Devil's Advocates keeps reminding me too, even though this isn't the #1 goal, but it'd be nice to get monetized. I'm sure most of us want to eventually monetize our channel, but I appreciate the support. I love seeing new subscribers. I want to build the channel up, and give me the thumbs up if you enjoy my videos, please, my friends. This all helps with the algorithms, apparently, and feel free to leave me a comment. That also helps to get the video out, apparently, to you guys and gals ultimately. Okay, folks, right? And hit the bell icon to be notified for future videos. Thank you. Now, so anyway, again, my friends, the first year, I would say year and a half, like many people, I followed the CIA, FBI narrative, local law enforcement, what we were told at the press conferences, and seeing the red on the foundation of the house, which you're supposed to believe is blood from the victims, right? It was such a bloody scene. There's blood seeping on the foundation of the house. Isn't that crazy, my friends? Because the feds, in my opinion, they had to put one thing in front of your eyes to make you believe, to con you, to make you think that the students were stabbed to death, right? Because they know you're not seeing any body bags, no leaked raw crime scene photos. We'll get into that in a moment, by the way, my friends. No leaked raw crime scene of the photos of the crime scene of the bodies, right? Huge red flags. But so they had to put that blood on the foundation of the house, and that's probably just pig's blood, folks. Believe me, I no longer believe that is not from the beautiful Xander Canoodle being stabbed to death, or Ethan Chapman. You know, I think they were on the lower floors, and you had Kaylee and Madison, you know, the beautiful women there up top. No, my friends, come on. This is a psyop, isn't it? Psychological operations, folks. And again, they didn't treat it like a health hazard. Remember I said earlier, my friends, if any frontline nurse will tell you this, if they look at that crime scene, they see blood on the foundation of the house, and it stayed on the wall. It stayed on the walls, my friends. Or should I say, forensic investigators would tell you, if they were being honest, you would clean that up within days. I think Bertie covered this too, my friends, right? You would clean that up. You can't leave blood on the foundation of the house day after day, week after week. But they did in the IDAHO4, my friends, right? Isn't that nuts? Crazy. So I wanted to bring that up. And then again, everyone, it was such a staged crime scene. They didn't treat it at times like the health hazard that it would be. I don't want to sound too morbid here, everyone, so I'll just quickly say, if you had 4 students, 4 people brutally unalive, dead, murdered, stabbed to death, with all the blood, there would be excrement, it would be a health hazard. Right, everyone? Again, nurses will tell you this. My sister's a nurse. She knows about the IDAHO4, right? So, and the point is, everyone, there are times where forensic investigators, and again, I believe Bertie covered this at times, and probably Phoenix too at times, talking about it. They didn't wear masks all the time. Yes, sometimes they did, right? They wore gloves, but sometimes they didn't. They wore slippers. Sometimes I don't believe they even wore the foot slippers. And when they were moving the boxes out, remember the victims' things, everyone? The police, even though they cleaned up some of the crime scene by then, you're not going to allow local law enforcement or U.S. Marshals, you're not going to allow them to trade dirt and germs from their boots into a crime scene, folks. No. And the other thing, and I almost always forget to bring this up, and many people talk about all the time, is the House, right, everyone? I think this all goes to support the extraction stage removal operation. That's why they destroyed the house, folks. That's the real reason they destroyed the crime scene. Now, I know you could go into other theories as to why they would, cover up and destroy the house, right? But I think the most logical reason, my friends, is that, again, if the students are alive, which I think they are, the U.S. Marshals did their job. They rescued those students. I want to give all credit to the U.S. Marshals in beautiful Moscow, Idaho, there in the United States, my friends, because they did their job. I will never believe they were asleep at the wheel and would allow gangbangers or a Brian Koberger or cartel members to viciously stab 4 people. Somehow they do this in what, 8 or 12 minutes and get out clean? Are you kidding me? No way, my friends. Come on. No way. And they have time and they're going to stab Kaylee's face and bust her nose? Highly unlikely, my friends, right? I mean, come on. And I don't want to sound too morbid again, my friends, but if you're highly trained, whether you're a gangbanger, especially cartel members, you're going to be going for organs most likely, right? If you're hired to do a hit, you're not going to be stabbing and marking up these beautiful women's faces. That's not going to be the priority of killing these people, I don't think, is it? I mean, I don't work for a cartel organization, obviously, so I don't know the ins and outs, but isn't that reason, logic, common sense too, my friends? So the point is, can we really trust Steve G? Do you really trust this guy, my friends, when you really think about it and look at and listen to this guy or Christy G? And by the way, my friends, as I said last night I meant to say on Devil's Advocates, I said it last night, but I meant to tell you here today, my friends. What did Christy G say in one of her recent interviews just a few months ago? Let me just read EAGR 2023. She says, I heard Christy slip up twice in interviews about Kaylee and Maddie living somewhere where she can't visit them, as in witness protection, and even said they had children. Exactly. Thank you. I can't wait to screenshot that comment. That's exactly what I was about to get into. Christy G, my friends, in one of her recent interviews a few months ago, Bubbly Waters was the first one to catch it. And again, my friends, you're never going to hear this from Jay Embry. Pavarotti is supposed to be digging into this case and providing as much truth and transparency as he can. Why isn't he telling you? Shouldn't he be telling you and showing you the clip from Bubbly Waters? He mentions Bubbly Waters a lot and pumps her up, but he will not show you the clip of Steve G's interview, my friends, that Bubbly Waters was the first one to catch, where Christy G literally says, Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. Maddie just bought a new house, folks, right? That's the word we know she was going to end with, how as in house. So apparently, my friends, if you're in a WITSEC program, right, and it is a fact, I found this out, you can actually buy a house for yourself if you're in witness protection at times, my friends. It's all set up, folks. The feds have it all set up for certain witness protection recipients and valuable assets to the law enforcement, my friends. Think confidential informant, right? Was Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan, were they confidential informants? Was one of them a confidential informant? Probably both of them, my friends, right? And many people have said maybe even Bethany, the survivor, was a confidential informant. We don't know. It's speculation, but isn't it fascinating, my friends? I tell you, the IDAHO4 case, I think Lee from Devil's Advocates, Rob and Joe and 1-1, they might just agree with this statement. It is probably the wildest, craziest, most dynamic case maybe ever, my friends, right? Obviously the feds, as I try to educate people throughout history, my friends, they do extraction removal operations, particularly the military folks, right? But even the feds, FBI, law enforcement, U.S. Marshals in this case, my friends, this is what they're trained to do, some of them, to rescue particularly confidential informant or government officials, valuable law enforcement assets, in other words, my friends. And then, as I've said, and I'm going to keep saying it, my friends, I'm only the second person to really get into USC Code 31. Or maybe there's a few more people that have mentioned it, and hopefully there is. But There was one YouTuber, he beat me to it, and I give him credit. I wish I remembered his name. One day I'll get his name. He's a big guy. I don't know if he worked in the military at all, but he told you, my friends, USC Code 31 WITSEC, right? What does that do? Well, first of all, they operate under national security. It allows the feds, using the Patriot Act, right, and using prosecutorial discretion. We saw how the prosecution act in the IDAHO4 case, my friends, it was a lot of lies. It was all for show, my friends, in my opinion, largely, right? With Thompson. What a joke. These guys are a joke, my friends. But using prosecutorial discretion, the Patriot Act, and national security under USC Code 31, folks, literally the feds, my friends, and U.S. Marshals, they can stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. And I believe that's the IDAHO4 in a nutshell, isn't it, folks? Most likely, many people we've all talked about, those of us that have talked about the IDAHO4, researched it, many people we talk about, there was probably at least one confidential informant involved in this case, most likely living at 1122 King Road. Even if you believe the students were murdered, my friends, obviously it shows we know the students were targeted, right? And even if you believe my theory, I should say extraction removal operation, that the students were rescued, it still means that yes, they were targeted. As I've always said, either by gangbangers or cartel members. It certainly wasn't Brian Koberger. Brian Koberger was just a Fed. He was a patsy, wasn't he, folks? That's what I've always contended from the get-go. I almost from day one, I thought Brian Koberger is probably a Fed. And Bertie has surmised about that at times. Many other people have talked about it. And I'll look forward to maybe asking about Lee what he thinks about Brian Koberger as possibly being an informant, an actual Fed, federal agent, maybe even two, folks. He was used as a perfect distraction. We saw this. We could talk for a whole half hour just on Brian Koberger, right, folks? Just a sec here, folks. Something came in. I'm just going to close the screen there. I just want to get back to your comments here, my friends, as much as I can. Amy, RaeuPnorth. Amy Punorth. Sorry if I butchered part of your name. I hope not, Amy. But thank you for coming on, Amy. I appreciate it. We'll just say your first name. Amy up north says, oh yeah, Amy up north. Oh, she just disappeared, folks. Sorry, one sec. I'm all over the place. I know. I'm sorry. It's hard to. I'm using this free, the amazing, what do you call it? Patreon here, or not Patreon, StreamYard. Sorry, folks. Oh, Amy, do you want to write your comment again, darling? I'm sorry. I saw your comment earlier and now it disappeared. Oh, shoot. One sec, folks. I might be able to find it. She had a good comment, I think. Most of you are leaving great comments here. T. Kuhn says, and BK certainly didn't fit their profile or narrative. Exactly. But he's sure a good actor. Exactly. Totally agree with you. Totally. Here's another comment from Help Me Rhonda, I believe. Did you know every single person in the courtroom, including parent, audience, everyone, except the Kobergers and one other? Not quite sure I understand that whole comment. Did you? Well, thank you for that comment, though. I appreciate it. Amy says, I want proof they are unalived or dead, in other words. Right, Amy? Fair enough, Amy. Well, we're connecting the dots, Amy, darling. We're connecting the dots here, aren't we? Sharon says, I hope you don't mind me saying darling, Amy. I'm just a term of endearment. Sharon says, oh, Sharon's comment disappeared. Oh, my God. I can't wait one day to have a moderator help me here. Sharon says, and want proof that they're dead. Well, that's the thing, folks. This is never going to be a thing that we're going to get a signed confession, right? Or a signed document or see a video necessarily. At least not, we won't, the public. We're not going to see a video evidence necessarily probably ever of Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogen. We might, because if you're protected under the WITSEC program, my friends, guess what? Kaylee and Madison and or Ethan Chapman, Xander Canuto, either one of them, if not all of them, they can eventually volunteer to get out of the WITSEC program probably almost at any point, and they can move out. Like I've always predicted, my friends, if they're anywhere in the world, and I don't think they really hardly need any protection probably anymore, they're probably in Puerto Rico, places like Puerto Rico. Why do I say that? Because the United States, again, WITSEC program, the Federal Witness Security Program there, witness protection, it's some of the infrastructure, this massive infrastructure that's put your taxpayers' money, by the way, folks, in the United States, they have it in places like Puerto Rico. Yeah. They might even be in my powerful country, Canada, in places like Labrador. But I don't think the girls would want that cold place in Labrador to live 24/7. You know what I'm saying? 12 months a day, year. I mean, so no, I think they could be in Puerto Rico frolicking on the beaches. Hell, maybe they volunteered and said, we want out of the WITSEC program. We want to go to Costa Rica. Because remember, my friend, Steve G and Christy G, they like to go to Costa Rica, don't they, for vacations? And there's some circumstantial evidence. I'm not sure if it was Birdie that put it out or some other YouTuber that showed you. It kind of looked like there was a girl that looked like she had possibly a dark wig on, and she had some of the profile characteristics that looked like Kaylee Gonzalez. You got to wonder, my friends. You got to wonder. Again, the feds have all their ways, different ways of shuffling these people, and it's a good thing, my friends, right? And again, if I'm right, my friends, if these students under the WITSEC program, they will live high productive lives, low profile lives, but they can still live a fairly productive life. They just won't be, in the public's eye hardly at all, right, folks? The family will be read in, though. I believe when it comes to the IDAHO4 students, my friends, that we're talking about, I believe Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan's parents, and Xander Canoe and Ethan Chapman's parents, I believe they're all read in. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point, folks. They know pretty much where their kids are. They will be read in from time to time and have been. Okay, that's just reason, logic, common sense, wouldn't it be, folks? I think so. Pissy Pixie says definitely in WITSEC. So I would go to Sharon. Sharon could be a troll. I hope, Sharon, you can continue to leave me comments if you're respectful. But you've left me many comments on my YouTube channel on, I think, like just regular videos I've done, and you've never even entertained the idea, apparently, that they're in WITSEC. I understand some of your questions might be, show me proof. But like I said, this is not something that we're going to have video evidence necessarily to see that Kaylee is in a WITSEC program somewhere and she's on the beaches in Madison, unless some journalists, tracked them down, got fortunate enough to catch photos. But I mean, come on. So you just got to use reason, logic, common sense, and look at the law, my friends. Look at history, right? Look at the staged crime scene. There's no evidence, Sharon, and anybody else who wants proof. How about show me proof that there was even a crime? Show me the real concrete proof. And Pavarotti out there and other YouTubers that keep telling us that, Pavarotti, my friends, again, be very careful with some of these YouTubers, my friends. They keep telling you over and over and over again that there was an atrocity. And yet, they won't even, Pavarotti, for example, my friends, he won't even interview somebody like myself or other people that have looked at the WITSEC program. They have looked at the fact that, hello, USC Code 31 WITSEC, the government at times will stage a violent event. Think IDAHO4, my friends. They will stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised, and they will get them the hell out of there and protect and put them in the WITSEC program. Pavarotti, my friends, in my opinion, if he was really being honest with you about this case, if he was really being honest, don't you think he should be interviewing people that have an opposite viewpoint, my friends? He only did, as far as I know, one half-ass interview with A.R. Hayes. And A.R. Hayes is a good guy, don't get me wrong. But one interview, Jay Embry, are you kidding me? So like Joe said on Devil's Advocates, my friend, Joe just put it like this. He basically said, I never trusted Jay Embry. I always got Fed vibes from him. And I'm not going to go real hard ass on Jay Embry Pavarotti today, my friends. But I'm trying to tell you the truth here, my friends. Just don't go hard and fast in a belief system about somebody. I did that with Jay Embry too, my friends. Because psychologists will tell you, I want you to never forget this, my friends. If you go hard and fast in a belief about something, it's very, very difficult to turn away from it, right? It's, in other words, if that's your starting point and you go hard and fast in a belief about someone or something, for example, myself, I'm not going to be able to facilitate somebody to make a change. For all of you that have gone hard and fast in a belief, and that's fine. If you want to support full-heartedly Pavarotti, I'm just telling you, my friends, if that's your starting point and you go hard and fast in a belief about him, think, because look, my friends, think about politics, right? So I heard a psychologist give an example. Look at the Donald Trump supporters, rabid supporters, and you can look on the other side with the Democrats. But speaking of the Republicans, my friends, many of these people, they're great people, but a lot of them have started hard and fast in a belief about supporting all in and believing Donald Trump, right? So any information that we give to them to contradict that may be contradictory about Donald Trump and catching his lies and all that, instead of, you know what that information does, my friends? And think about Pav. It's only going to confirm your belief system if you've already gone hard and fast in a belief about something or someone. You know what I'm saying? If I sound a little bit convoluted in part of that, I'm sorry, my friends, but I almost think I have it down pat what this amazing psychologist has said. Okay. And she's right. So we got to be very careful. That's all, my friends. And just let's be honest, right? I wish those of you that supported Pav would get on his case and say, why don't you interview ESTEY'S crime maze? Why don't you interview other people? Right? So that's just some of my opinions there, my friends. But I won't give up from time to time challenging this J. Emery Pav with a big channel and all of his supporters. I'm not going to give up challenging him to an interview from time to time. And I challenge him to a boxing match. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm getting sidetracked, my friends. And again, I don't even come close to hating Pav in any way. It's a playful beef I have with this guy, my friends. But, you know, and certainly I've got things wrong in the IDAHO4 case. Like I said, my friends, in the first year and a half, I went along with J. Emery and many other people's narratives following FBI, CIA. Oh, it was an atrocity, right? The Aryan Knights, the Aryan family or cartel members, they must have got to these students and stabbed them to the death. No way, my friends. There was a hit placed out on them, yes. And I'll give you an example here, my friends. Let me know what you think about this, everyone. You know, people like Pavarotti, rightly so, they will play the whole operation that was out front of that house that night. And you better believe it was a big operation. Pav has used those words too, operation, right? Everybody knows it. You can see it. You had the dumpster guy. You see a guy pacing back and forth. Maybe one day, my friends, if I get help with an editor, we'll play these clips. You got a guy, this was all leading up right to of the so-called atrocity, right, everyone? You had a guy pacing back and forth right out front of the building, right? Smoking a cigarette. You had another guy in a car for at least a couple hours out front of the house, right, everyone? Eventually, I guess he drove off. And again, you had this guy, dumpster guy. He went to the dumpster at least twice, and then he got picked up. People like Pav and many other YouTubers, I think, are just sort of a little bit naively confused, I think, or mistaken. But Pav, seemingly, my friends, he's trying to convince you they're all basically, or most of them, they're the gangbangers. They're the Aryan Knights or Aryan families that did this atrocity. And I'm thinking, really? No proof, though, no proof whatsoever of that, my friends. But you know what makes more sense when you connect all the dots, when what I've been telling you, in my opinion, everyone, is that's the feds. Yes, my friends, most of those people, if not every one of them that we find suspicious out front of the house that night and preparing what I believe was an extraction removal operation to rescue those students, that being the U.S. Marshals, rescued those beautiful students, my friends, thankfully, from a potential hit. That was law enforcement, my friends. Those were the feds. That is reason, logic, common sense, in my opinion, my friends. Think about it. Pav is not telling you, if you're gangbangers or cartel members, why would you let yourself somewhat be seen out front of the house? You're closing your door in and out. You're walking around all over the place. But if you got numerous feds that got to do an extraction, that's why you would see numerous people, my friends, the feds, even though they're trying to be somewhat discreet, right? I'm telling you, my friends, this was a huge federal operation right from the get-go. On November 12th, my friends, and afterwards largely, this was largely a federal operation, my friends. And right from the get-go, they had good intentions, U.S. Marshals, my friends. They did their job. They absolutely knew who I believe was targeting these students, who had it out for them. Because unfortunately, one or more of the girls, maybe even Ethan Chapman as well, pissed off some very dangerous, potentially dangerous people. The feds would have known all this, my friends. They absolutely would have known, in my opinion, exactly who was targeted, who was targeting the students, right? Who the possible assailants would have been. And why am I so adamant about this, my friends? Because Steve G, who I normally don't believe, my friends, but sometimes he tells you the truth and tells you too much. He literally said in more than one interview, my friends, he admitted that the feds had surveillance around the house. They had all kinds of surveillance, my friends. And we all see undercover cops all over the place that night. I said this briefly on Devil's Advocate show last night, right? So how could undercover cops and U.S. Marshals, how could they not go in that night and make sure to get those students out when Kaylee and Madison, for example, potentially got home? They're supposed to have got home, we assume, from the grub truck, right, everyone? The feds would have known this. There's no way anybody from now on can make me think otherwise. I don't think that those feds would have absolutely been having their eye on Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan all that night, my friends. And you know what? It goes even before this. It was pre-planned, my friends. Extraction removal operations can often somewhat have pre-planning to it. These were valuable law enforcement assets at 1122 King Road, my friends. One or more of the girls probably, right? They were confidential informants most likely. So they would have had continuous communication with the feds. And I've always wondered, my friends, or the last couple of years or year and a half or so, I've always wondered, have you guys wondered who was Kaylee texting, right? Many of us have talked about this. By the way, and I think she was texting probably a federal U.S. Marshal, most likely. Amy just wrote a long comment. Fake investigation, fake stories from roommates, fake guilty plea, fake leaks from Brian's cell, redacted documents, extraction operation totally makes sense. A play to get everyone on board for IGG. Exactly, Amy. Totally agree with you. You see, what Amy just related on the last part of her sentence, on board for IGG, it's like what Bertie talked about, my friends, in so many words. Some of these false flag major events, whether it be 9/11, we know that, especially that major event, but even some of these now psyops, I believe these fake assassinations, and with whether it be Charlie Kirk, I believe Charlie Kirk's alive, as I've said, my friends. We'll do videos on him again, but even with the IDAHO4, my friends, I believe this was a complete psyop, psychological operations from day one. The students were extracted. And so a lot of these false flags at times, my friends, we know that some of the global financial predators, the so-called elites, right? I like to call them global financial predators. Elites, it's a shorter word, but it gives them too much power sometimes, I think. But anyway, we'll do the short word elites. But some of these people, my friends, some of the deep state, in other words, some of the scumbags, evildoers out there, we have seen it throughout history, my friends. They will try to override our human rights and fundamental freedoms. And they'll try to change policy, my friends, whether it be for more surveillance, illegal surveillance, etc., or try to make it legal. So we got to be very careful here, my friends. We got to be hyper vigilant, right? And always, try to be hyper vigilant just in keeping our human rights and fundamental freedoms and not allow certain small groups to try to infringe on our rights, whether it be FBI or CIA or any organization. I'm sure a lot of you would agree with me on that, hopefully. So thank you for that amazing comment, Amy. I'll try to screenshot that at some point too. What the Ellie says, IGG doesn't matter. It's fake. Brian's DNA. Oh, her comment disappeared. Here it is. Oh, it disappeared again. Brian's DNA was not on the sheath, and Gabriela's Vargas told me that, the first expert. Interesting. Yeah, exactly, my friends. Like Brian Kohberger, reason, logic, common sense, my friends. He probably didn't have his own touch DNA left on a knife sheath, right? And most of us that have researched and are being honest about this case, we're going to tell you that most likely the knife sheath was planted, my friends, right? Come on. But again, my friends, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation agents on YouTube out there at times, my friends. I'm just saying, right? We got to be careful, because when you're a misinformation, disinformation agent, they're going to tell you some truth, but they're going to mix it in with lies at times, my friends. Okay. So again, hint, hint, my friends, some of these people that are not interviewing other people, I won't even mention any names right now. Maybe I mentioned the person earlier, maybe I didn't. But let me just put it out there, my friends. If they're not interviewing other people with opposite viewpoints, hardcore researchers that are being honest with this case and trying to provide truth and transparency, if they're not interviewing people, even leave me out of the equation. Okay. If they're not interviewing other people that have talked, for example, about extraction removal operation, you got to question why that, in my opinion, that should put up red flags, my friends, no matter how big someone's channel, a man or woman, if they're not willing to interview somebody that's trying to connect the dots on showing you, and by the way, real law, my friends, again, USC Code 31 Woodstick, it allows the government to at times stage a violent event, my friends. Is that what we saw in the IDAHO4? I believe it is, right, folks? And again, it blows my mind. Other YouTubers who I don't even think are real misinformation, disinformation agents, and I won't name them, but unlike devil's advocates, for example, my friends, many of these YouTubers, for some reason, and maybe they're just naive, I don't know what it is, but they will not interview or talk about it themselves about the extraction removal operation theory as a possibility, at least, right? I mean, come on. We're in 2025 now, my friends. Look at what happened. Look at the comments I just read to you. All the sealing of the records, right? That this person was referring to. What else did they say? I can't read it here. But they're destroying the house and on we could go, right, folks? I mean, come on. They destroyed the house, in my opinion, everyone, because they knew there was no crime scene. They can't have you go in a house eventually or have jurors go in the house when the jurors would find out, well, wait a sec. This doesn't, there couldn't have been 4 stabbings by gangbangers or cartel members or Brian Koberger. Come on. You can't do that in 8 or 12 minutes in a house like this. No way. And 4 healthy students? Probably impossible, my friends. Come on, right? So they destroyed the house, which is despicable. And then, my friends, again, under USC Code 31, and there's probably other laws, my friends, that describes it allows the feds, they can do a show trial. Excuse me, my friends, right? And they can do show hearings. Isn't that what we saw with the IDAHO4, my friends? The feds, if a confidential informant has been compromised, right? And especially if they've done an extraction removal operation and rescued students and they have to do the cover up now, they can do anything they want pretty much in court, my friends. And we saw it with the IDAHO4, right, everyone? They seal records. They lie. They use prosecutorial discretion. So you had a prosecution team, my friends, that I believe was all in on it. We caught them in so many lies. And we caught them using Brett Payne as, he got caught in lies on the stand, and on we go, my friends. This is all part of the law. They can do this, my friends. They could do a whole show trial to try to pull the wool over us, the public, my friends. But we don't have to buy into it, is my point. Okay? So, sorry I get so animated at times here, my friends. Yeah, T. Kuhn says Pav goes all over the place at times. But no, I'm not trying to, another person says, why hate on him? Meaning, or she says, laugh out loud. Why hate on him? Laugh out loud. Again, I don't have any hate towards Pav, or I only have almost a little bit of hate towards a certain YouTube creator. I'm not even going to name the name, but let's just say she works for the FBI. But no, I don't even hate her, but I have a lot of hard feelings because there's so many lies from this person, in my opinion, folks. And again, we got to be careful with the intel agencies, of course, folks, because their mandate often is to lie, deny, and deceive at the expense of American taxpayers. That's a fact, folks, right? And again, if I'm correct, my friends, in naming certain misinformation, disinformation agents out there on YouTube, I'm not bringing up any names at this very moment, but you've heard this live today, my friends. Some of the red flags of these people, I believe, is they should be interviewing people. Why would you go solo time and time again? I get you have that right. I get you might enjoy, some people might prefer going solo for a certain length of time, but you have certain YouTube creators doing hundreds of videos and they've only done one interview and they won't interview anybody with an opposite viewpoint. I mean, come on. Here I am on Devil's Advocate show, and Devil's Advocate's, he's got balls, my friends. As he said, he's got a real cock swagger, man, he said half jokingly, right? This guy, he's the real deal, my friends. Please check him out and subscribe, I hope, if you enjoyed his videos, and give him the thumbs up, for heaven's sakes. and leave a comment and join myself, hopefully, and other guests on his show, folks. Because Devil's Advocates, to his credit, my friends, he allows somebody like me, ESTEY'S Crime Maze, Jason, to come on and simply discuss my theory, trying to connect the dots. And you can agree to disagree. But I think, my friends, there's a lot of validity to it. And a lot of people have said the same thing. The extraction operation removal theory makes a lot of sense, folks. And I believe that is the operation that we saw out front of that night, the hours leading up to the so-called atrocity. But there was no atrocity. Did you hear that, Pav? There was no atrocity, in my opinion. Those students are alive and well. Most likely, they are. And the parents know it. I mean, you just look at the interviews. And again, my friends, Christy G, and all of you that fully are in on Pav's theory that there was an atrocity and it was the Aryan family, Aryan Knights, all this nonsense, in my opinion, largely. But if you really believe the atrocity got carried out, like Pav seemingly wants to convince you, then shouldn't you be asking yourself or telling them? You should be interview me, man. Let's have a lively discussion, dude. I'll treat you with respect, but I'll be firm, man. I'll be firm. So there you go. Robin says, Jason, I'm impressed that you know the name of many of our laws, numbers, codes, whatever. And me as an American, I don't even know them. Laugh out loud. Well, Robin, thank you, sweetheart. That's very kind of you. Yes, I wish I knew even more laws. I know your friend there, our friend Lee, Devil's Advocates. He knows a lot about laws and is amazing at going through, as he says. He almost praises himself, and he should, about going through the court records. He's very good at doing that. Pav obviously does it in his own way as well. But again, my friends, somebody like Pav, they are not going to, he's never, as far as I know, he has never mentioned USC Code 31 WITSEC. He showed a video of the WITSEC program, which is great. It talked a little bit about the WITSEC program at times and what it does, particularly how it protects, prisoners, or in certain ways, I guess, confidential informants. It was an interesting short video. But my friends, there's a lot of things that video doesn't tell you. And one of them is it doesn't tell you that under USC Code 31 WITSEC, if a confidential informant has been compromised again, the feds can literally stage something like the IDAHO4, my friends. They could stage violent deaths. They could fake deaths, my friends, right? Fake unaliving deaths. This is why I get so adamant, my friends. I think this is what we're looking at. The beautiful Kaylee Gonzalez, the beautiful Madison Mogan, the beautiful Xander Canoodle, and the beautiful man, the stud Ethan Chapman, my friends. They're not dead. They're not underground. They weren't viciously stabbed to death. This isn't a huge tragic case like we were fed by CIA, FBI, my friends. I don't think so. And there's nothing to show, my friends. There's nothing to show that there was a tragic event. It was just staging crime scene tape, right? At times the badges. Again, but it was largely a staged crime scene. It sure as hell looked like that, my friends. And by the way, my friends, and again, no verifiable removal of the bodies, no body bags, as Robin said. They put tarps, I think Robin said, around the area and stuff like that. But and we never saw any leaked raw crime scene photos, my friends. No leaked autopsy photos, my friends. Are you kidding me? Just like Birdie said, my friends, I believe it was Birdie. He said in almost any high-profile case, and I've been saying this on video after video, in almost any high-profile case nowadays in the last several decades, you almost always get leaked raw crime scene photos and or autopsy photos. That's a fact, my friends. But we didn't get it in the IDAHO4, and I think reason, logic, common sense, my friends, to infer from that, it's because most likely there was no crime. The good news, there was no tragedy. Those students were simply extracted by the feds. Who knows? They may have even had an underground base set up nearby. We don't know. But most likely they got them out in a car somewhere and maybe eventually in an underground base, eventually on a jet plane, and they're out of there, my friends. Please don't underestimate how organized and shrewd the feds can be and how well trained they are in the U.S. Marshals. So they never have to be mad at me. Nor does the FBI and CIA have to be mad at me, because they do their jobs really well, and I'll give them credit where credit is due, And in particular, CIA, Unfortunately, though, they're trained very well to deceive and and lie to the public at times. I won't talk too much about CIA in this video, but so there you go, my friends. And they use the CIA, of course, through corporate media. Many of these journalists, my friends, we've sort of been hinting and discussing it on Devil's Advocates, my friends. We know, and Joe has said he's right. Most journalists are CIA at this point. I mean, it's in the last several decades, really, right? Joe said that in so many words. So, and he's right. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. Help Me Rhonda says everything was a script. Oh yeah, I read this earlier. Fake audio, fake cameras, fake squat shootout, ridiculous interviews, actions meeting every day. The list goes on. Oh yeah, I didn't read that comment actually. Thank you. I totally agree. Absolutely, that's all true, right, folks? So there you go. But Pavarotti's not telling you any of that, is he, my friends? Well, he tells you some of it, I guess. But you see, where Pav, my friends, you gotta make the judgment yourself. Is he deliberately lying to you? Can he be that naive? He keeps trying to say that he's convinced there was an atrocity. He says it 1,000 times. There's no proof that an atrocity really took place, though, my friends, right? I just showed you. Pavarotti will not admit to you. This is why I don't think he wants to do interviews, my friends, with people that are really trying to be honest to connect the dots. He doesn't want to discuss that. Wait, there was no leaked crime scene photos of the and no verification of the bodies even being removed from the house in the first place, right? And by the way, my friends, we're going to end this live soon. But again, I got to give credit where credit is due with Birdie, my friends, because I've been discussing it a lot in my videos. But Birdie, he beat me to it. He said, and he held help, I think, at times in some of his, obviously he gets help with some of his research, which most of us do, which is great. But he's on the boxes, my friends, when they were removing the boxes, the shit out from the victims, right? The so-called victims, right? And the two survivors, Bethany and Dylan. We'll talk more about them in future videos, my friends. But so when they're moving Kaylee's things out, belongings, and Madison Mogan, right? And Xander Canoodle and Ethan Chapman, and then you got Dylan Morrison and Bethany Funk, the so-called survivors. And people like to sometimes even say they're victims. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, but the boxes, it said North American Relocation Services on the boxes. Now, people will say right away, just like they told Birdie at times, well, wait a sec, so what? They're moving shit out. It's a moving company. They're moving people's belongings, right? From the house. Okay. Well, some people do think it's very strange. It says North American Relocation Services, but okay. But wait a sec. The company apparently, and Birdie said this, he was trying to find out, it seemingly they went down. They no longer existed online. They just went non-existent within 24 to 48 hours, seemingly, North American Relocation Services. Isn't that interesting, my friends, right? You know what's more interesting, more telling? And Birdie, I think he said he got help with this information. Or no, he told you that actually he claims that he figured this out. He asked himself, I was wondering if North American Relocation Services, do they work with the feds? And he found out, yes, they got a Schedule 48, it's called. Now, it's called SIRVA, SIRVA, my friends, SIRVA. Now, I've looked them up. They do some regular moves, and they describe on their websites, they'll move refrigerators, cooling apparatus, things like that. But the Schedule 48, my friends, that you're not going to find on regular Google about the company, the Schedule 48 allows them to actually move valuable law enforcement assets, my friends. Yes. So North American Relocation Services, with their parent company SIRVA, have the Schedule 48, and again allows them to move, for example, confidential informants, for example, out of a house, right? One or more. Think IDAHO4 potential here, my friends, right? Think, and they can move government officials, law enforcement assets, valuable assets to the law enforcement. Was Kaylee and Madison, my friends, were they in particular valuable law enforcement assets? And maybe Xander Canoodle as well and Ethan Chapman? I think the answer is absolute yes, my friends, right? And I don't know if the feds had a pre-plan that Ethan Chapman that they knew was going to be there that night. I don't know. But the U.S. Marshals, my friends, because we never saw Ethan Chapman, Xander Canoodle, or Kaylee Gonzalez or Ethan Chapman ever again. It shows, my friends, that that night the U.S. Marshals knew that those students were in danger and they had to extract them. And for whatever reason, Dylan Morrison and Bethany Funk, the U.S. Marshals knew, well, they weren't in danger. They probably weren't compromised for whatever reason. And they were used as patsies themselves, and we caught them in a lot of lies, I believe, Bethany and Dylan, in my opinion, right? Many people have talked about this. I mean, it's a total psyop, my friends. This is a hideous psyop, I believe, the IDAHO4, right? It's all, again, my friends, and I've defined what a psyop is. I'll do more in future videos, but I'll just briefly tell you a little bit of what a psyop is, right? A lot of people use the word, but they don't define it. Okay, as far as I know, I'm one of the few, if not the only person that really goes into what a psyop is and how it can relate also to the IDAHO4 for that matter. But and how it's going to help our world, my friend, immeasurably if we can educate people, I believe, on what a psyop is. You know, I don't want to pump myself up or sound too narcissistic, but I have a lady friend, Jane Scarp, in Ottawa. She's an amazing activist. She's been an activist her whole life, most of her adult life, I should say, and as a young woman. And she thanks me to this day and has told many people that she thanks me for teaching her what a psyop is. Because as she describes, it helped her cut through her fear. It helped cut through her anxiety. She understands, you know, the governments at times, the elites, they do this psyop, they do this psyop, this false flag. Here's how they manipulate your perceptions, right? So a psyop, my friends, and again, it's known by many different terms. You can Google this part of the definition, right? It can be used as we've heard hearts and minds, right? You've heard, of course, propaganda, also information warfare, but psyop, psychological operations, it's any activity that is practiced mainly by psychological methods with the aim of elucidating or evoking a planned psychological reaction in another person. You know, another way of saying it is, my friends, first of all, it's a military or political tactic that uses communication and other non-combative means to influence a targeted audience's emotions, behaviors, and attitudes. It's ultimately, again, all about manipulating perceptions, my friends. Think about what Steve G, I believe, in my opinion, is trying to do, and Christy G to us, and at times Olivia Gonzalez, my friends. Their job, I believe, is to largely try to manipulate our perceptions, you know, put out this highly charged emotional narrative, get you to go hard and fast in trying to believe that this atrocity took place, just like Pav largely tries to tell you, right? Atrocity, 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 Aryan family, Aryan Knights is Pav's thing, right? But Steve G tries to convince you that these students were targeted, and his daughter, you know, and his daughter's nose was broken. It's all part of the psyop, in my opinion, my friends. Okay. And by the way, most of us know. Robin says, Estes Crimes, hope all of the puppies and the new mom are doing well. Oh, thank you so much, Robin. Very, very sweet and kind of you. Yes, the puppies are doing awesome. We have Cinnamon. She's only just over a year old. We didn't want her to have puppies, but maybe in the end it'll be a blessing. She only had a small litter. Apparently, you know, if they're very young dogs, you hope that they'll have a small litter because we don't need any more puppies. Our beautiful mother dog, Flo, she gave birth to like probably 14 puppies overall. And Flo is an amazing mother, by the way. But Cinnamon is turning out to be a great mother herself as a young dog. She just had 7 puppies. So thank you very much for that, Robin. Yes, I'm an animal lover. And so where was I? I forget now. I think it was kind of important. Oh, psyop, my friends, right? And most of us know that a psyop, it's designed to target, you could target individuals or certain groups. You know, governments will conduct psyops even in third world countries, especially other dangerous countries. They'll conduct psyops at times to try to change policy, my friends, you know. And of course, the military, most of us probably know this. And you can learn about this, my friends. The military often, we know, conducts psyops, psychological operations, right? It's used to assert confessions, for example, and local law enforcement. For example, Moscow, Idaho, my friends, all law enforcement, cops, and I'm sure one knows this as well, that they will often conduct psyops. Some of the police force, I'm sure they conduct psyops almost every day on their jobs, my friends, especially when they interrogate somebody. You're conducting a type of psyop, whether it be to influence perhaps when you're interrogating somebody, a potential, you're trying to suss out, are they a victim or are they a perpetrator? You might try to, the person you're interviewing, thus, you might try to persuade them to come out with a lie or see if you can get the truth out, catch them in a lie, or you might try to, therefore, as part of the Psyop, psychological operations, you're going to analyze their behavior, of course. You're going to maybe try to affect their value systems in how you present your questions or talk to them. Again, manipulating their perceptions. I mean, and on we go, my friends. A psyop. We got to understand, I believe, my friends, especially in the day and age that we live in, right? We got to understand psychological operations. And again, in future videos, I'll describe, my friends, more about maybe sometimes the military. There's 3 different types: military, tactical, and operational. And I believe with the IDAHO4, my friends, using law enforcement, U.S. Marshals, some powerful U.S. Marshals at that, and of course using different federal jurisdictions there, operating Moscow, Idaho, and Washington State, etc. But I believe they conducted a psyop, right, everyone? They absolutely did. And again, it's all about manipulating perceptions, my friends. And you can use a psyop to induce cooperation, right? In the case of the IDAHO4, the cops can conduct psyops to try to have us cooperate together, or they can use it to divide us, right, everyone? Unfortunately, you see a lot of times the elites or global financial predators, sometimes around the world, small groups, they want to often conduct psyops to create division. And again, it relates a lot of times to politics. And my friends, if you go to Devil's Advocate's channel, by the way, give this guy support, watch his videos, watch our interviews with his guests, and hopefully myself at times too, my friends, you're going to understand how a psyop relates to politics. You see, Devil's Advocates, to his credit, and Joe and one, my friends, and Robin and us, we're discussing politics at times in a profound way. How these true crime cases at times relate to politics. Yes, the IDAHO4, certainly the Charlie Kirk as well, my friends. That really connects to politics in a big way, right, folks? And it connects, therefore, to the intelligence organizations, right? All these different operations that take place. It involves, as Joe mentions, the banking systems, my friends, and on we go up the ladder, my friends. So this is what I really love, and being part of Devil Advocate's show at times, my friends. I love the fact that we're getting in at times in politics and relating it to true crime. It doesn't even get, I don't think, too convoluted usually when we're talking about this stuff, my friends. And it's so important. When you guys agree, and gals, it's so important. And again, when we understand what a psyop is, my friends, I really think when more of us understand psychological operations and how it relates to the public, and how, again, how we get played at times, how they try to pull the wool over our eyes, my friends, etc., it's going to really help us change society in a profound way, and really help us grow a culture and society to sustain ethical leadership, right? Because most of us want ethical leadership, right? Let's see. Kristen says, hi, it's interesting. Do you have more examples on why you think this is a psyop? Well, I could talk probably for another half hour, an hour on that. I have to wind down this live stream, but I appreciate the question, Kristen. Let me answer it this way. When you hear a lot of the statements and analyze Steve G's behavior when he's talking about Kaylee Gonzalez and or the other students, especially the ones, that were supposedly murdered, think about his strategic messaging that he does, I believe, my friends. Okay, Kristen? Think about Christy G as well, and Olivia Gonzalez. And remember how Olivia Gonzalez talked, at the hearings, and how she addressed Brian Koberger. He's this most evil person she's letting on, in so many words, right? It's just ridiculous. It's so over the top, my friends. This isn't real human behavior, I don't believe, my friends. And Olivia, it didn't sound genuine. Most of the times, my friends, in my opinion, these family members, they don't sound genuine in their grieving. And we all know, if you study this case, Brian Koberger, he couldn't have done this crime, my friends. There's no way. And most likely there wasn't even a crime. This is the good news, my friends, right? The only crime really is that we've been lied to in 2 ways to Sunday on so many different areas of this case, my friends. And I think the biggest lie potentially, and I think I'm correct, is that we've been lied to when they told us that the students were stabbed to death, that there was this tragedy in the first place. Why should we believe that? I would believe it if there were body bags, probably, my friends. I think it would be very, very hard to not believe otherwise. If you saw 4 body bags coming out of the house when you knew they didn't have too much time to stage all this, right? If forensics and law enforcement were removing actual body bags, then that would go further to cement, yeah, there was a crime here, right? And then you seen the red on the foundation of the house. But when you only got the so-called blood on the foundation of the house, and yet they leave it on the foundation of the house day after day after day, like I said, my friends, that shows it's a staged crime scene. And the boxes. But anyway, back to Kristen. I think, and again, part of the psyop, my friends, and I think this took place a lot with the IDAHO4, with the family members, with journalists, on mainstream media, the Nancy Graces at the time, Ashley Banfield. In my opinion, my friends, they largely were in on this psyop. A part of it, by the way, my friends, some of the tactics of a psyop is they use information warfare, of course, propaganda, as I said earlier. We all know about propaganda. And they use strategic messaging to shape public opinion and behavior. So I would say to you, Kristen, I believe, and some of these YouTubers, unfortunately, are guilty, I believe, of doing it too, particularly some misinformation, disinformation agents. Even though there's a lot of good, great YouTube creators on the IDAHO4 case as well. So there's a mixed bag. But I believe that Steve G, Christy G, and Olivia Gonzalez, they were all in on this psyop. They were putting out strategic messaging at times to try to shape public opinion behavior, because they're hired to try to convince you that their daughter was killed. When in fact, I wish they'd be honest. I wish they would tell you, my friends, because these lies are really hideous. They should be honest, in my opinion, at some point and say, you know what? No, Kaylee Gonzalez, none of the students were killed. They're out of the country now. Now we could talk freely. They're protected, man. But it's up to us, my friends. I get it. You're not going to hear the truth from the parents, and I guess probably the parents, they may have some very good reasons why they feel like they can't tell us the truth. So it's up to us, my friends, to really dig in here and ask ourselves, do you really believe Steve G when he tells you his daughter's nose was busted and she was stabbed viciously, even more than the other student? Do you really believe Steve G, my friend? Do you really believe Christy G when she tells you this? Do you see any tears from the father, my friends? No. He's collected over $100,000 apparently from the public. And this is on the back of his daughter's death, if you believe she was really killed, my friends. So many people, for that reason, are very angry at Steve G, collecting all this money. He's renovating his house, right? He's had, and he's worked hard as an IT guy, so he's been fortunate enough and worked hard to be able to buy new cars, apparently, buy houses, right? He's been able to raise kids. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got 2 beautiful daughters. And yet you're still, in my opinion, lying to us, the biggest lie. So that's why, my friends, it's hard for me to have hardly any respect for Steve G. But the one area I will give him credit and I have respect for is he did have a very great bond with his daughter. He can know that. I respect him for that. And seemingly he had a great bond with Kaylee Gonzalez, and he was a great father overall. I believe that. And I believe the mother too was. I know I'm getting really deep here, my friends, and I don't mean to sound so serious. I got to end this live soon, though. But it is a serious case in a lot of ways, right, everyone? But it's at the same time, it's hilarious with all these lies. It's so over the top in the behavior of some of the journalists, or many of the journalists, in my opinion. It's hilarious almost how over the top these family members have been, in my opinion, at times. It's crazy. And a lot of people have talked about it. I'm not the only one can see through this, right, everyone? And by the way, my friends, as part of an extraction removal operation, I want to say this on the live today. Guess what? You're never going to have an open public casket ceremony. Let me repeat that, my friends. If you have an extraction removal and staged operation where the feds literally are staging a violent event, where they're literally faking someone's death, unaliving death, right? Murder, you're never going to have an open public casket ceremony, because obviously you can't, the feds and forensics, they can't exhume a body when there was no death. So if Kaylee Madison and Xander Canoodle and Ethan Chapman, if I'm right and they're alive and other people are correct that they're alive in the WITSEC program protected, then you can't have a public open casket ceremony, my friends. It's too risky. You can't, you're not going to put a dummy in the coffin, unlike Charlie Kirk, the wife is just showing the hands and she's, the wife's kissing the hands, which was probably a dummy. I mean, that's something altogether different. But so again, everyone, my point is with the IDAHO4, with these beautiful students and the beautiful families, the beautiful parents involved, did we see any open public casket ceremony for any of the so-called victims? No. Some people might just say it's a coincidence. But if you do your research, my friends, again, look at the extraction removal operation in a hard way, my friends, and in an honest way, I don't think it's a coincidence that there was no open public casket ceremony. And as even Devil's Advocates Lee said, my friends, I believe he said, he even thinks it's very, very weird and odd that they were cremated right away. And he added something else, and I can't remember what it was after that statement. And I agree with you, Lee, exactly. They cremated them right away. And Ethan Chapman, Ethan, if I understand correctly, Ethan Chapman's family, they were the one family that had a private funeral service. There was no open public casket ceremony, though, my friends, right? So again, I think it all leads credence, my friends. It's all part of the circumstantial evidence, I believe, that we're looking at, I believe, a WITSEC program, a federal covert extraction removal operation, very, very covert. By the way, my friends, real quickly, I keep saying I'm going to wind down this live. I just might have a defense contractor friend. Let me just put that out there. I've said it many times in other videos, so some other people on my other platforms will know this. And I'm on TikTok as well. I just might have a defense contractor friend, my friends. And so I might know some of the secrecy, particularly when it relates to the aerospace companies. And also because I research the aerospace companies and UFOs, all the black budget technology, etc. I have a whole channel for that. I'll be releasing more videos on that. But so I know how secrecy works. And even though I'm not law enforcement, my friends, but you rest assured, when it comes to these certain projects like an extraction removal operation, these certain operations, you have what you call special access projects, right? Very, very top secret, highly classified. Also within law enforcement, right? Not just the defense contractors, aerospace companies. But you also have even more highly classified projects or programs, which are called unacknowledged special access projects. So the point being, my friends, rest assured, you're never going to probably hear this from any other YouTube creator, and that's okay. But know it from me, my friends. If you got an extraction removal operation, you rest assured the people that are read into that program to do that operation, leading up to and afterwards, if you even divulge the existence of what you're working on, you will be jailed potentially 30 years or killed. That's how compartmentalized some of these programs are, my friends. And I'm pretty sure that's how it relates in a large way to some of these, extraction removal, very covert programs, right? I just thought it would, hoping that would be interesting for some of you out there to hear that. What the Ellie says, maybe they are all literally were cremated without permission. Steve G brought my kid home in a box. Maybe they didn't have bodies and were cremated without option. That's interesting. What the Ellie, very interesting. I would say to that, Ellie, because this is largely on extraction removal operation and Psyop video today, and what I really believe of this case in a large way, I would say that I think the students are alive, though. I don't think they were cremated. I don't think they were put in a box. I think Steve G's lying to you if he tells you, that they just got her in a box. I heard that too from Steve G. I don't believe any of that, my friends. And again, Steve G has his reasons, unfortunately, to lie and pull the wool over eyes, my friends. He has his reasons, I believe. I think part of it is that he's pushed out by the FBI to have to do this from the get-go, this highly charged emotional narrative, because the feds have to do the cover-up, my friends. They're not going to tell us that the students are alive, protected in the WITSEC program. So it's up to us to figure it out and talk about it. Right, folks? And that's why, again, I give so much credit to Lee from Devil's Advocates, man. I so much admire this guy and respect him and consider him a great friend now. and I'm having a blast on his lives, and I hope we can continue it. I hope he'll continue to want to have me on because I'm really enjoying it. Even though sometimes I'm tired by that time of the night, but here in Canada. But no, I really respect Lee in so many ways. The Devil's Advocates, what he's doing, what he's trying to do, and his public dedication, the fight for truth, freedom, and health, and in true crime, man. And his guests too. It's incredible. Because again, Devil's Advocates, and part of why I respect him is that he allows he allows others to bounce our ideas one another. We can agree to disagree on our different theories of this case or main theory. And Joe asks great questions as well from time to time. He asks profound questions from me too. I mean, it's great. These guys put me on the spot, but I don't mind most of the time. So no, it's really important, my friends, and I hope more YouTube creators maybe they'll take the reins at times from somebody like Devil's Advocates. And Bertie does this to a certain degree himself. He has some really good guests on that ask some really great questions. They go into different theories, which is cool, and they bounce ideas off one another. Um, but I really respect that Devil's Advocates. He's interviewed me and allowed me to talk about the extraction removal operation. And when I go over some of the research at times that Bertie's done and some of his researchers, for example, I often will bring them up. I'll give them credit that these people said such and such, like the extraction removal operation. They brought that up as a real potential theory in the WITSEC program. And to this day, my friends, I think Bertie was being honest with you when he told you I sink my teeth more into the WITSEC angle, which I really, really kind of respected him for doing that. I was really glad to hear him say that. And even if Devil's Advocates is not on primarily on the WITSEC angle, he doesn't put it out of the realm of possibility. He has more likely scenarios that he leans towards, and that's fine. That's great. But I also think that maybe I'm getting to Devil's Advocates to even think more deeply about, is Estes crime maze, could he be right? Is he right about the students being removed out of there? Oh, geez, Jason's right. Estes crime maze. There was no body bags when you look at this crime scene again, when you look back. No verification of the removal of the body. No autopsy photos. No leaked crime scene photos. And Devil's Advocates, Lee, we talked about this actually. Some of them, I brought it up on his channel, and he brought it up too. So we're having fun. I hope I'm making sense here, my friends. I'm sorry that I do bounce around at times. I'm not used to doing a live like this. To me, it's almost more professional now. I'm on my computer for the first time. Thanks to Lee, Devil's Advocates helped me set up and setting up. I hope you guys heard my intro. It sounds like you did. I don't know why I don't hear it on my end, but that's fine. 1-1 says, Esty, you are one of us now. I can't tell you how much that makes me feel good. You made my night, 1-1. Even if I didn't participate on a live at 9 o'clock tonight, but hopefully I'll be on and be able to show up. You made my night, 1-1, saying that, because it's been a wonderful journey. I really enjoy. Even though again I was used to going to bed late at night, but I still can get to bed at a fairly decent hour, but just not as early. But I really respect these guys and gals. It's awesome. I love the journey. I love being a YouTube creator and being a guest on especially a platform like Devil's Advocates. I'm willing and wanting to be a guest on other shows if some host will take me and want me on. Because I'd like to talk about not just my theory, whether it be Bertie, other people. If you want to get into other theories, sure, let's discuss them. But I hope if you interview me on some of the interviews at least, that you'll want to ask me in front of the audience about my thoughts of the extraction removal operation. For example, if Bertie interviewed me, I give Bertie credit while we're doing an interview like I do Devil's Advocates for allowing me to talk about it. And I give Bertie credit for him actually discussing it in his videos. And he was interviewed on Tommy Jude's show, True Crime. Oh no, Tommy Jude's crime channel. What's it called again? Oh no, I forget. I'll get it, my friends, another time. But Bertie was interviewed by Tommy Jude, and Once Upon a Crime Time. That's it. Once Upon a Crime Time. They did a whole episode on the extraction removal operation, and then Tommy Jude, to his credit, he interviewed me too, and I got to talk about the extraction removal operation and talking about a psyop. And just to put it out there real quick, if Bertie ever hears this live, or hopefully maybe Lee, Devil's Advocates, and some of you might tell Bertie about me. Bertie even knows who I am, but I hope you guys might ask Bertie to maybe give me a chance to interview me. I think we could knock it out of the park. Hopefully, I think we could do a really great job, get some really good engagement, and people can agree to disagree at times. That's okay too, right? I know Bertie's not afraid of controversy at times within reason, but I know we'll get a lot of support too. But what was I trying to say, my friends? Oh, now I forget. Anyway, I just hope that Bertie might consider give me a chance to interview me at times, or at least once, and talking about IDAHO4, because he's talking about IDAHO4 all the time. I've been at this case a long time, and again, but I'm so ecstatic to be with Devil's Advocates, Lee, and I'll always be grateful no matter what happens in my life that I had a chance to be on his show with amazing guests like 1-1 Joe, the amazing co-producer guest Robin, and others. I'm very thankful. It's been a blast. It's given me more enjoyment and pleasure in my life and trying to provide truth and transparency my own way. Oh, I meant to say, if Bertie interviewed me, by the way, my friends, Bertie, let me discuss what a psyop is. I think you would enjoy in the audience for the most part, hopefully, telling you guys what a psyop is, because I've researched it. Even Joe on Devil's Advocates, I give Joe credit because he said the fifth war nowadays, fifth type of warfare, I believe he said, is psychological warfare. Think psyop, my friends. And 1-1 and Joe, I think they affinitively call me Psyop Man. Even Lee Devil's Advocates may have said that too. Sometimes they call me Psyop Man. They give me other half jokes and labels, so that's cool. Outcast, by the way, Outcast 420, I believe. He just was here earlier. I saw his comment. I promise we're going to end this live soon, my friends, but I really appreciate you guys and gals being here. Many of you have stayed on for quite a long time. Others, I'm sure you have things to do, and that's okay. And you leave, you hop on leave perhaps. I think, by the way, my friends, Outcast 420, I'm sure the numbers are 420. Outcast, my friends, he did a video and Lee laughed. Devil's Advocates. He saw the video and we're gonna play. He said he might play the clip on one of his lives with us on. Guess what? Outcast, my friends, he's got some really great editing skills, and I guess he's got a great sense of humor, no question, because he did a video and ultimately I put it on my channel. Of course, I credited Outcast 420. He did a video with me as a baby. Yes, my friends. Jason Estey's Crime Maze. He put me as a baby and he had me in an interview with me posing questions to Pavarotti Jay Embry as if we were having a real interview, because Jay Embry has not shown the balls, in my opinion, hasn't shown the courage yet to interview me or even somebody that has opposite viewpoints, apparently. He won't interview somebody like me, apparently. Hopefully one day he'll change his mind. We'll see. We'll see if he's the real deal. If he's the real deal, in my opinion, he'd give me a chance to really go at an interview with him in front of his audience, and see who do they agree with the most, right? Anyway, and I'd be respectful on the show for the most part. Don't worry. But Outcast 420, my friends, he has me as a baby, and he has Jay Embry. All of you that know about Jay Embry and Pav, Jay Embry's a baby. Yes. And he's got he kept replaying a part where Jay Embry says Pav block. He's got the Pav block on me or something like that. It's hilarious. And he has me posing hard questions to Pavarotti. Here I am as a baby, and I'm saying things like, Jay Embry, Pavarotti, he will never address that there was no forensic photos. How about that, Jay Embry? No forensic leaks, no autopsy photos, no raw crime scene photos, no body bags, things like that. So I think you guys, if you go to my channel, hopefully you'll subscribe as well. Give me that thumbs up again. Hit the bell icon. Hopefully you might want to leave a comment as well. Share my videos, please. Let's take this channel to a whole other level. Lee from Devil's Advocates, he's already helping me on my way as well. Thank you so much, Lee. But for all of you new to my channel, or those of you that have been following me for a long time, please check that video out if you haven't. I think you might get some laughs. It's very over the top, but Outcast, literally, I think it's hilarious. He's got me as a baby face. Even my family, who were used to me, they laughed when they saw me as a baby. Even my adorable nieces laughed. So thank you, Outcast 420, again, for doing that video for us. We got a great response, and I'm really glad that Lee, Devil's Advocates, I always knew he had a great sense of humor. He even told me he laughed hysterically, and he just might put that on his show. Sounds like he does want to at some point, so that'd be great. I think hopefully we'll all get a laugh. Anyway, enough about me. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Again, whenever you come on here, folks, feel free to leave me a comment where you're coming from, what country you're from. Yeah, so I really appreciate it. And again, I appreciate Devil's Advocate so much. I consider him a great friend now. And maybe one day we'll all meet up in Costa Rica, right, Lee? Devil's Advocates, you know I want to get you there one day. And we'll do some zip lining or what have you and just have a blast out there with the hot, beautiful weather, beautiful country, Costa Rica. Yes. Anyway, and I want to thank Bertie out there. Even though Bertie, he was going to interview me and then he backed out a few times, but hopefully, Bertie will follow through one day and interview me. I had some harsh words on an email to Bertie once after, I was just frustrated because he backed out on me several times, and I guess he had his reasons at the time, and I can respect that now, or reservations. He had reservations. I can only hope, and I've apologized to Bertie since then on emails, that I'm sorry that I was rude to you if I was on some of those emails, or one email in particular. I think I was. I used some. I didn't swear, hopefully, but I used a word that I shouldn't have. And I apologize, Bertie, because that's not what I think of you. I do have high respect for you. I have high respect in your dedication, what you've accomplished with YouTube. I love a lot of the way you think about the case of the IDAHO4 and true crime in general, especially when it comes to this IDAHO4 case. Um, and I appreciate, some of the guests and what they've really said at times in your interviews, even though I don't always agree, and that's okay. But a lot of times I do, especially with Phoenix saying again, North America, or she said, remember, one last thing, my friends. Phoenix said, I'll never forget. She said so many words, and I may have said this earlier in the live. You take away the crime scene tape, you take away their badges, and it's almost as like, again, she's describing like a staged crime scene when they're moving the boxes out and everything. It's almost like I'm paying somebody for or giving them some pizza. I'll give you free pizza or I'll buy you a beer if you move my shit out. That's what Phoenix, I believe, said in so many words. And she is right. I totally agree with that metaphor and that description. And I thought, Phoenix, you're right on. And no, I don't agree though when Phoenix says things like, she thought that maybe Xana was stabbed out front, and that's okay. We could agree to disagree. If Phoenix has her reasons for thinking that, that's fine. We can always have a nice discussion about that. Perhaps if I'm on the Bertie show, but I would love to have one-on-one with Bertie, and maybe he will want to invite another guest if I ever have on his show. However, Bertie wants to do it, I will go on his show if he wants to interview me. Whether he wants to invite another guest with us, I don't care. I want to see Bertie face to face on camera in a live interview on his platform. I'll be privileged, like I'm very privileged and honored right now on Devil's Advocates show, and hopefully we can continue, of course, with Lee, Devil's Advocates. Nobody has the charisma like Lee from Devil's Advocates. And Bertie certainly has his own charisma as well. And we all have our own types of charisma. I get it, right? And so anyway, I've made my point. I won't go on about Bertie anymore. Dizzy Jezbel, great to see you, Esty. Thank you, Dizzy. Jezbel, I appreciate it. And by the way, I did get to converse briefly with Bertie once on Once Upon a Crime Time with Tom Jude. Very briefly, I asked him a question, made a statement to him, and he addressed me. So that was kind of cool, even if I never on his show. But it would be great to be on his big platform as well. And Devil's Advocates, congratulations, dude. You're already at over, 10,000, 11,000 subscribers and continually going up, even though that's not your, that's not your end all be all. You're not just all about subscribers, even though it's a great thing. But you're so much more than that, Devil's Advocates. Even though you're a devil, you really know how to relate to people, and I know you care about humanity. And you're great at communicating with people by and large. You're an excellent communicator. You're brilliant. I could go on and on praising Devil's Advocate, and I can't give enough credit to Robin as well. She's brilliant in her own way as well. Very intelligent people, my friends, and of course Joe, 1-1. They're amazing guys, very intelligent, very straightforward, cool guys, great sense of humor from all of them. So keep it going, guys. Keep it going, and Robin too. So All the best, and hopefully I'll be on Devil's Advocate Show tonight at 9 p.m. Those of you that want to hop on Devil's Advocate Show, just be prepared because ESTEY'S Crime Maze is going to be there too, hopefully. All right. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. I'll be reading all your comments more when this live ends. I may not get around tonight because my back is killing me. I got to go for a walk. I got to make dinner. I got to prepare at 9 o'clock to be on with Devil's Advocates. But if I don't get to the comments tonight, hopefully by starting tomorrow, I'm going to enjoy reading your comments and try to give a thumbs up off my phone because I can't do it here on the computer giving you thumbs up. And maybe even I'll give a thumbs down if you're giving me a hard time on the comments, but hopefully I don't have to do that. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it. T. Coon says, try and find SG history and his lookalike Nathan D. Very interesting. Hey, maybe Devil's Advocates, you might want to check this out. T. Coon says, try and find SG's history and his lookalike Nathan D. I may not have time to do the research, but if you have the time, Lee Devil's Advocate, in your busy schedule, maybe you and or I or other people, we can look up that history and talk about it on your show if we find some interesting, tantalizing revelations, information, right? Yeah, T. Coon says, and then a judge that says no to alternative suspects. Yeah, what a joke, my friends. Again, as part of USC Code 31, Whitsick, my friends, didn't we see that play out where the feds can literally do anything they want practically? They could do a show trial, they could do a show hearing, and that's what we saw, my friends. It was a joke. And I fell for it at first, my friends, but then I thought, no, this all feels like a show trial. It's all bullshit. It was all theater, my friends, in my opinion. Absolute theater, right? Again, my friends, this live, please understand, I'll say it for legal reasons. Largely, these were my opinions, but the facts back it up. The facts largely back it up. Okay, folks, in my opinion. So there you go. Thanks, everyone. Again, have an awesome day, evening, or morning, wherever you are and whatever country you're in. And I hope you and your families stay safe, live strong, all that good stuff. Truth, freedom, and health all the way. And we'll see you, Lee, and the guests. 1-1, Joe, you great guys, and the amazing, beautiful Rob. We'll see you guys hopefully at 9 o'clock all together. Take care. Now I gotta end this live. And how do I do it, my friends? Oh, it just says end live stream. Piece of cake. Thanks for being here so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Look forward to reading your comments and maybe sending you guys a comment back and answering, of course. And maybe doing some screenshots of your comments and questions. Thanks for your questions too, by the way, everyone. And we'll get to more questions when I get better at these lives, okay, folks, and reading your comments as well, I promise. And we'll discuss more of a psyop, what psychological operations is, how it relates at times to some of these true crime cases, how it even relates, I believe, a psyop being played on us at times by the parents involved in these cases, my friends, in my opinion. And again, Christy G told you, Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. She said that in a recent interview, my friends. So in the WITSEC program, Federal Witness Security Program in the United States, when you get relocated, you could buy a new house, apparently. And that only makes sense, folks, right? It's actually a fact. You could buy a new house. And Christy G even told you as much, too. And by the way, when I was interviewed with Ellie, by the way, my friends, Ellie and I did numerous interviews, too. You could check us out. I loaded up on my channel. Ellie and I, we had a blast doing interviews. She's amazing, folks. And she did a great intro for me. So I want to thank Ellie before I end this live. Thank you, Ellie, so much for the intro. Really appreciate it. Eventually, I might do other different intros, but I really appreciate this one thus far. Been utilizing it for quite a long time. But what was I going to say about her interview? That Ellie even said after Christy G blurted out, probably by an accident, she said, Maddie just bought a new house, as in house. She left the interview. And Ellie said, whoever's doing the interview, conducting it, probably went, cut. And so Christy G left the interview. Think about it, my friends. You can't buy a new house if you're alive. I'm sorry. You could buy a new house if you're alive. You can't buy a new house if you were stabbed to death or dead. Think about that, my friends. So that's truth coming out, I believe, of this case, my friends. Christy G told you, Maddie just bought a new house. And I don't think you could really justify that otherwise, my friends. Doesn't that mean the students are alive? It's just another dot connecting, my friends. of the extraction removal stage operation, I believe. Psyop, baby. Thanks, everyone. Got to go. It's Estes Crime Maze. I hope you'll subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, no, we haven't ended the live stream? Leave studio. Oh, one sec, folks.